Thank you very much. So I will, as my colleague Sefi Uziel from Israel would say, hot from the oven, he said, because press Congress was just last week, actually. So I will present some data on the Reliance study, which is a prospective observational study from the German registry. So this is a German registry, their experience with canakinumab in patients older than 2 years. Follow-up is 3 years, but pediatric patients have even more, almost a 4-year follow-up. So as a part of this Reliance study, I will present 3 posters that were at the press 2023 updates available. The first study is an interesting study that evaluated infections rate in this group of patients on canakinumab. You can see that they included patients with CAPS, FMF, hits and traps, and the population included more than 230 patients, so 232. And what was interesting during the COVID time, it was like a epidemiological kind of a experiment, because during the COVID, there was significantly lesser exposure to infections. And you can see how the rate of, I do not have pointer, so the upper is the all adverse events line, and the second, the orange line, is the line for the respiratory tract infections, so these were non-severe infectious rate. And the red line is for severe infections. You can see that during the COVID time, all infections rates, so all the adverse events dropped, but after the pandemic finished, the rate of respiratory, so those non-serious infections, increased, which means that also the all adverse events increased, but the rate of serious infections stayed low. So based on this data, we see from epidemiological large-scale data that all these patients were on canakinumab treatment during this period, so it clearly shows that canakinumab was not the reason in year 2019 for high rate of these non-serious adverse events, which were clearly linked with epidemiological situation during the COVID time. So there was no accumulation of non-serious or serious infections under canakinumab during this 4-year period time. The second poster that was presented was showing the disease control in patients with canakinumab. So again, the same cohort of patients followed for 4 years. You can see here the period, and median age of the cohort was 20 years. You can see here the results. So in this study, they included 58 CAPS patients, 28 FMF, 10 TRAPS, and only 5 hyper-IgD patients, which is also kind of a reflection of epidemiological situation that I commented before, which is really kind of showing that there is definitely a founder effect that influences the autosomal dominant rate. As I mentioned, for example, the 3 TRAPS patients in our country within one family. There are cases familial in CAPS patients. And for FMF, I will just comment that we evaluated the prevalence of MEF gene that causes FMF in former Yugoslavia republics. So, and we found the highest prevalence in North Macedonia, Bosnia, and then Croatia, and the lowest in Slovenia. And we evaluated also in Hungary, which had the lowest rate of MEF mutation, which is somehow showing that during the Ottoman Empire, this influence kind of the circulation of this gene in our population, and the CAPS NLRP3 is coming from the north of our central European area. So that's why it would be interesting epidemiologically. So this study showed that regarding the efficacy control of the disease, you can see the numbers that patients stayed in remission: 68, 82, 63, and 100%. So 100% is for those 5 patients with hyper IgD syndrome. But in spite of the fact that patients were well controlled, they still reported some negative impact of the disease on their social life and mood. The last study that I would like to present is the study on the disease activity during the coronavirus pandemic, which nicely showed that the proportion of patients with no disease activity, so patients who had, let's say, a disease remission, before pandemics was 20%, and during the pandemic, 45%, which means that during the pandemic, also their disease activity was milder, was inactive, which somehow shows we know that in these patients, different triggers, also infections, can trigger disease exacerbation, which is somehow confirmed also on this large-scale study. I would say that altogether, this large registry is giving some better insight in the quality of life and safety of our patient populations with hereditary autoinflammatory diseases. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bensby.
Okay, thank you very much. I will present one abstract from the EULAR. And I'm not sure that Novartis will invite me again after that abstract, but you gave me the option. So the subject is on-demand canakinumab therapy for colchicine-resistant FMF pediatric patient, and it was a multi-center study which was done in Israel. And the background is that canakinumab was proved to be efficacious and safe in FMF patients who are colchicine resistant. And in their clinic, where they did this study, they treat some pediatric patients with on-demand canakinumab, not fixed dose canakinumab, not every month. This is their strategy. It depends on the physician and the patient's preferences. And these patients get less canakinumab than the regular dose. So their objective was to compare the disease activity and the safety between COD's canakinumab on-demand strategy to the fixed frequency canakinumab, which is the regular dose of canakinumab every 4 weeks. And it was a retrospective study, so they took all their patients on canakinumab with colchicine-resistant FMF, and they divided them to those who get on-demand treatment versus fixed-dose treatment. And it was a retrospective study, not a prospective study. And the patients who were on-demand canakinumab got their first injection. Everyone got canakinumab, and then the next injection of canakinumab was only after they flared again. And the fixed-dose canakinumab group got every month canakinumab. And the outcomes that they measured was the efficacy, meaning the mean number of monthly attacks after the initiation of canakinumab, and the safety, according to severity of adverse events, mild, moderate, severe, or life-threatening events. And these are the gender distribution and the ancestry of the patients, and there were no differences. What is interesting here, they had we can see that they had 25 patients in the canakinumab on demand and 26 patients in the fixed dose canakinumab. And these are the results in terms of efficacy. So we can see the first line is the frequency of attacks per month before canakinumab in the two groups, and there were no differences, although it was 3 versus 2, but not statistically significant. And the second line is the frequency of attacks after canakinumab, depends on the strategy. The canakinumab on demand decreased to 0.33, and the canakinumab fixed dose decreased to 0.13. There was no, this difference is not significant, meaning that there's no differences in the efficacy of these both strategies. But if we look at the mean monthly canakinumab dose, we can see that the canakinumab of the on-demand group got 1.3 milligram per kilogram per month versus 3.16 milligrams per kilogram per month in the fixed dose. And this difference was significant, meaning that the canakinumab on-demand dose got accumulated lower dose of canakinumab, and their efficacy was the same in both groups. This is another figure that they didn't publish yet, but it's in the abstract. So this is the cumulative dose of canakinumab versus in the red versus the cumulative dose of canakinumab in the on-demand group in the blue. And we can see a nice decrease in the total dose the patients get on demand with on-demand strategy. So the conclusion of this abstract is that for individuals with colchicine-resistant FMF, canakinumab on demand compared to the fixed dose canakinumab can achieve similar efficacy and safety, but with a lower accumulated canakinumab dose, meaning less immunosuppressive and, of course, less expensive. Thank you.